Okay, let's start by sitting up comfortably. And tonight, let's start by singing descending fifths. I'll demonstrate, and then we'll do it together. I'll do it a little higher so everyone, the key that'll work hopefully for everyone. The way you can remember this at home is, oh, say, can you see? Or Flintstones. Or someday when I'm old and gray. Descending fifth, the most relaxing musical interval that there is. Okay, and we'll do it with the 5 basic vowel sounds: a, e, o, u. But the most important thing is, don't worry about doing it right or doing it wrong. The most important thing is that we'll take a nice, full, deep breath, and as we melt, smoosh down from the higher note into the lower note, just have this feeling of your whole being melting into beingness. Your whole form melting into the formless. Your whole little sense of being a bounded self melting into the boundlessness, which is what you really are all along, but we have to do these things to remind ourselves. So, deep breath in. If your breath doesn't last as long as mine, that's fine. You won't lose any points. The main thing is just losing yourself in that sound, losing, melting. And the next sound is A. Then E. Then O. And oo. And let's do all 5 of them again, one at a time. And now just rest in that space that we've been melting into. Just remain right where we are. Nowhere to go, nothing to accomplish, nothing to figure out, nothing to supervise. Yeah, but what if this is happening in my meditation? But what if I'm thinking about that in my meditation? What if I feel that in my meditation? That's all just the stuff coming and going. We treat it all equally. We treat it all as the stuff that's coming and going. So we don't oppose any of it. We don't buy into it. We don't try to manipulate it. We don't rise to the bait. Like the Buddha sitting under the tree, we just remain here steadfast, not thrown by any of the illusory thoughts and emotions that are thrown at us. We just let them go by. The story says that when the Buddha was assailed by all the hallucinatory weapons hurled at him by the hallucinatory warriors, rather than fighting back or running away, in midair he turned them all into flowers. Oh yeah, whatever's there, whatever thoughts, whatever emotions, however problematic we might think they are, they're just all part of our little flower garden of stuff coming and going. How delightful. How irrelevant. Just resting as this naturally wide open awareness space within which the flowers come and go. just resting as beingness, as we already are. That simple. Always that simple. Anything that makes it seem like, no, it's complicated, that's just another thought. Just turn it into a flower. Let it go by. Right here, right here, this awareness, this beingness, just relaxing back into it, relaxing your grip on anything you're gripping, relaxing your resistance to anything you're resisting, relaxing your futile attempt to figure anything out. It's so much simpler than anything you can figure out. Just relaxing into this beingness, this awareness, right here. Ah. right here, right here. Just melt into right here. Melt into this very awareness. Melt into this very beingness. That's simple. When in doubt, melt. All your strategies, let them melt. And take a few minutes before opening the eyes. Okay, how are people doing? Everybody good? Good. Simple, simple. When you're wondering anything having to do with meditation, or almost anything else actually, and you're wondering, wait, like this or like this? The test is, well, which is simpler? Which is simpler? Let's go with the simpler. Simplest, really, in this case. So what questions or thoughts or issues are on your mind tonight? Anybody? Yes, Richard. I have to empower you to unmute yourself. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
as you know, I learned TM at an obscure country school on the East Coast in the 80s.
Yes.
I'm able to transcend my mantra, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
and I grip on it, and that's fine. That's working out. It comes, it goes, it's there, it's good,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. One thing that bugs me that I remember being like a major tenet of the TM practice was to do it on an empty stomach. And I never did that. It was always like do it before breakfast, do it before dinner, don't do it on a full stomach. And this, this is all like after dinner stuff now.
Right.
What was the rationale for that, and how do you feel about that now?
Well, I had a a delicious dinner of shepherd's pie, homemade by my best friend and partner in crime here. Um, it was delicious, and we were watching the Democratic convention and watching them do the casting the votes from all the 50 states and American Samoa and all that. Which, by the way, I don't think they can ever go back to the old way after that. That was so much more fun. And then sat down and meditated, and seems fine to me. How's it seem to you?
Seems fine to me.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. I think we're big boys and girls now. We're allowed to, listen to our own experience. The rationale for that, again, speaking as a former TM teacher who, as you know, I was the person telling you that stuff. The rationale is that meditation involves physiologically a settling down of the of the all the body's activity, and that includes settling down of metabolic activity. Digestion involves an increase of metabolic activity. Putting it in a little more subjective terms, when you meditate on a full stomach, some people more than others, there's a tendency to feel more kind of dull. The experience is can be kind of lumpy. That's the rationale. And I think when Maharishi evolved those instructions, he was not foolish. He was not making stuff up out of thin air. I mean, I could kind of get that. I've also some people when they first get up in the morning, or it could be in the afternoon. If they haven't eaten for a while, they can start feeling out of sorts. They can start feeling headachy, for instance, and for them it's much better to at least go eat a couple of spoonfuls of yogurt or something before you sit down. Maybe something easy to digest. But in the big picture, as we grow into mature practitioners, as our perspective becomes less dualistic, less, okay, I'm up here at the surface and now I'm going to meditate to transcend. Richard, were you in the session last week when I drew the bubble diagram?
Yeah.
So that whole perspective, which is very useful, that got up to a point is very useful. It provided a simple conceptual framework for a whole lot of people, including you and including me, to meditate regularly. And okay, the idea we're going to settle down from here to here. But as we become more mature practitioners, as the stuff works, as it does what it's supposed to do, our whole perspective should become less dualistic. It's less a matter of, I have to get from the surface to the bottom and now I've transcended, and more, the whole thing's the ocean. The ocean is right here. We're never out of it. We just relax into it.
Right.
Does the Buddha lose his enlightenment because his stomach is full? Right? They usually say, okay, sit up to meditate. Does the Buddha lose his enlightenment when he lies down? No. And more, that's, if you've been meditating for, God, how many years now?
On and
off. Multiple decades, and if at that point this point you're not feeling a little more Buddha-ish, you should find that joker who taught you this stuff and demand your money back.
As David Lynch said to me, you got to keep going back to the bank, pal.
Yeah. But and that's a beautiful metaphor. Again, like all these metaphors, or like a lot of these metaphors, it's based on it's a dualistic model. More and more we realize, no, you live in the bank. You are the bank. You don't have to go anywhere. You can never be out of the bank. But provisionally, yeah, you got to go. If we decide too early, if we decide prematurely, oh, this is it, I'm a Buddha, I don't have to go to the bank, that can too easily become, I don't have to practice, I don't have to meditate. Again, the great metaphor is from the Buddha himself, who said that all the meditation, all the teachings, in this case, we can include all the rules and regs, like, do you meditate before or after meals, and how do you sit up straight? How long? All of that. All the Dharma, he said, is like the raft to carry you over the raging river of ignorance and confusion and suffering and distress. When we get to the far shore of nirvana, we're deeply grateful to the raft, but we'd be foolish to carry it around on our backs. So the point of all these practices, all these insights, is to dispose of them. They should all, if they're any good, they should obsolete themselves. It should be like, in chemistry, you have someone correct me, some scientist. Larry, you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, because I didn't do well in chemistry class. But I believe the case is that in a chemical process where you use a catalyst, right? The catalyst is an element that you introduce into the mixture to bring about the change, the transformation. But then that catalyst, that catalytic element, is eliminated, gets spat out of there, something like that. So in that sense, all the Dharma is a catalyst. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Thanks for asking that. And I encounter so many people who started with TM, and I know that's great because they got effortlessness. If they paid heed to what the teachers were telling them, they got effortlessness, and that's the key thing. And very, very few people were teaching effortlessness at all, and certainly not with the systematic clarity that Maharishi taught effortlessness. But then, the other stuff. Oh, yeah, I can encounter so many people who've been doing TM for years, and they said, my teacher told me meditate for 17 minutes each time. Sometimes it feels so good, and I go over to like 21 minutes, and then I start feeling, oh my God, did I do something wrong? And so, I've got to, I get to bring them the good news. Hey, everything's okay. You're a big boy. You're a big girl now.
Yeah, I remember like 17 minutes, and then when you turned 18, it could be 18 minutes.
Yeah. Till you got to 20.
Yeah, I remember getting to 19 and then 20.
Yeah. And I remember, and I taught that way for years. And I remember one day thinking, wait, in ancient India, where these traditions allegedly come from, they didn't have wristwatches. You read these old Tibetan texts, and they'll explain how to do a particular meditative method, and they'll say, okay, now sit down and do this for about the amount of time that it takes to eat a meal. Right? That's their way of saying about half an hour, because they didn't have clocks in Tibet or paved roads. Okay? Good. What else? Sometimes I feel like the guy in the deli. You order your half a pound of cream cheese, and he says, and what else? Half a pound of Novalox. And what else? Okay, let me. I actually got an email from someone with a question that they asked me if I would bring this up. So let me read this to you. going to read a part of this. Ba, 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 ba. I was doing natural meditation and had the following stream of consciousness. So everyone listen up here and let's play You're the Teacher. You're the teacher. You know, as you're becoming big boys and big girls in meditation, you should always be trying to think like the teacher. You know, I started doing this a long time ago. Always try to anticipate what's the teacher going to say. So I was doing natural meditation and I had the following stream of consciousness. Anxious thoughts appear along with fear feeling. Even after years of therapy, with dramatic improvement over time, I still wax codependent often. After years of techniques learned and dreams explained and Pema Chodron lectures, there's no acceptance of that feeling, the feeling of fear. I attempted to make space for that feeling, and I used your suggestion to let go a little and then rest in awareness, looking at the feeling and accepting the whole thing as my meditation, as opposed to needing to be serene, though lots of thoughts tried to attract me out of resting in awareness. Suddenly, a sexual fantasy ensues out of nowhere, and anxious thoughts are blown away, and I have no fear inside the fantasy. Big insight moment as I realize that this type of feeling, this feeling of sexual fantasy, is superior in the hierarchy to my fear. This is followed quickly by recognizing that this is the source of addiction. Then that's followed quickly by a recognition that my association with awareness is not as strong, distracting, or powerful as a juvenile sexual fantasy for transcending anxiety. I realize that here I may be comparing apples and oranges, as I'm talking about a psychological theater where one set of thoughts and awareness conveys a different feeling than another. Perhaps this is another opening to consider that awareness and thoughts appearing in awareness may someday be separated enough that resting in awareness becomes the foreground rather than the background. I wonder if there's help to really dip into this ocean and to prefer its depths to sex, drugs, and rock and roll, to frictionlessly fall into that ocean without feeling attracted or required to grab onto thought-based experience. That would appear to be the way to go. Okay, everyone hear that okay? All right. So help us out here. Let's get the Sangha pitching in. Any thoughts about any advice for this anonymous person? Any perspective at all? If there's any little loose thread coming out of the sweater you feel you can tug on. Philomena, you can unmute yourself.
So this is actually John, Phil's husband. But
oh, John.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's still thoughts and awareness. You're looking at, you're noticing the thought, but they're like picking up the thought and going with it rather than just resting in the awareness and letting it go.
Mm-hmm. That sound right to other people? You know, one of my teachers, I had some big epiphany like this. Oh, when this thing happens in my meditation, then because this thought is that, and that thought is that, and that thought is that, and now I understand that about this thought doing, and that thought, and I understand that, and I explained that to the teacher, and he said, and that also is a thought. Right? Again and again. And John, I would say absolutely amen here. There's only two things going on. There's the awareness, which has no content. And then there's all the other stuff, the thoughts, the feelings, all that. What we do is rest in the awareness. Whatever the thoughts are that go by, let them go by.
There was something you said about being in awareness, and in one of your, I'll call it book meditations, you said, and there's something good about that. And I was feeling kind of off because I was feeling aware and I wasn't feeling that tinge of good. And recently it's starting to happen. And, it's not like good or bad. I was like,
Right.
no, I'm just aware. That's all I'm doing. And then finally it came there, and it's like more energy came out of it. And, just nothing. You're doing nothing, zero.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden it started feeling good, and it was almost like I was allowing myself to enjoy it. So it was
Yeah.
interesting.
It's just nothing, but there's something very good about it. I believe that's the line
That's what you said,
alluding
yeah.
to. It's
Yeah.
just nothing. I had a long phone call today from a friend who was talking about reading about the void. And he said, when I hear the void, I think in terms of, it's like a black hole, and it's cold, and it's forbidding, and it's, existential dread, and all of this. And this is this very unfortunate translation of the word shunyata into English, which was usually translated as void. And people think of it as that. It's like this big black hole, and then you get into like the existentialist philosophers. It takes a man of courage to face the void, it's so terrifying and all that. And that's such bullshit, because you're going, it's bleak and it's terrifying and it's all that. Those are attributes. That's not void. If it's void, the true shunyata, the true emptiness, is void of all those characteristics that you're imagining. And all that stuff of, it's so terrifying and it's so blah, 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 that's all ways of distracting ourselves, more rationales to keep ourselves from melting. Because we're all afraid. Even though, why do we bother to show up here on Tuesday night? Turn off the convention half an hour early and hear me and hear each other instead of Jill Biden, whoever's speaking tonight. Because we all want awakening. We all want enlightenment. But at the same time, there's a part of us that's afraid of it, because we're afraid we're going to be like the Wicked Witch of the West. I'm melting. Right? But the thing to remember is the Wicked Witch of the West is not the true self. She's the ego. She's the false self. She's what we think we are. Right? We think we're this little, identity that's got a name and a shape and a history, and gets born at a certain time, and then has to, in what we call the past, and then has to die at a certain time in what we call the future. And the good news is we're not that. We're what we melt into when we melt. And by the way, did you notice, any of you, that there is something nice? There's something copacetic about that sliding down in the descending fifth. Some kind of setting the tone of the feeling of melting into oneself, into the boundlessness. So if you like that, if that talks to you, you can use that as a nice on-ramp into meditation. You can use it any time. You can use it. I sing descending fifths in the shower every morning, as a matter of fact. It's a real nice way to start the day, I find it. Having said that, okay, let's get back to the other issue here, which in the email that I just read. This observation, which was not to be dismissed, that wait a minute, the pull of sexual fantasy appears to me, says the writer, than the pull of the boundlessness. Even though, John, as you said, you know, at first it can seem like it's just empty, it's just nothing, but the nothing but something very good about it, that gets clearer as we continue to practice. Right? As we continue to practice, it tends to get clearer gradually, and sometimes suddenly. Sometimes there's just moments, whether you're sitting there with your eyes closed or you're taking a walk on the beach or whatever, where just, oh, happy for no reason. You know what I'm talking about? Happy for no reason. Just beingness. We just, right? Yeah. It's so nice, John and Philomena, to see the two of you smiling and nodding. And isn't it fun as a couple to have the opportunity to discover that together?
Oh, yeah.
You know, you notice how I sign off at the end of it, at the bottom of every newsletter, and usually at the ends of these sessions. Enjoy being. Enjoy. That's the whole teaching. You can ignore everything else I say if you really hear that and really do that. You know, partly that's prescriptive, partly that's descriptive, partly that's describing what happens as we continue to practice. All right. So that enjoyable. So if all we're seeing is, before we start to see, oh, there's some. When at first we start to see perhaps it's just nothing, and we haven't quite seen yet there's something very good about it. We actually have, because that's what that inherent blissfulness of beingness is what makes the gravity of natural meditation work. That's the only reason that it works, right? Because we're not concentrating, we're not pushing away the thoughts or attempting to, right? Because very few people will ever succeed. You know, anytime someone tells you, wait, what kind of meditation are you doing? What? That sounds very lazy. No, you've got to make I've been working hard. I sit, I meditate for an hour a day. I work at pushing the thoughts away, anytime someone says that to you, you say, okay, and how many years have you been doing that? Okay? And out of all those years, for how many minutes total would you say you've succeeded at making your thoughts stop? Right? I think that'll answer the question. So since we're not attempting to stop our minds, what we're doing is just ignoring our minds. Minds means the capacity of thinking, of the activity of thinking. We're just ignoring it, not trying to push it away, not buying into it. And we're just resting as awareness. But what happens, the settling down takes place by itself. There's only one reason that would happen, and it's because of the inherent blissfulness of beingness. Because all the enjoyment that we're looking for in all the accomplishments, all the ego gratification, all the sensual gratification, including sex, all of that is actually the nature of beingness, the nature of awareness, having an opportunity to display itself. Right? The example, most of you have heard this before, you're going to hear it again, right? Water. Ooh, I love water. Oh, I'm so thirsty. I need some water. Let me have some water. Water. It gets closer and closer. Now I'm satisfied. Water makes me happy. There must be happiness molecules in the water. And of course there aren't. There's only, what is there in water? I don't know. H and O and something else. H2O, is that water? Yeah, H2O. Like I said, I did not do well in chemistry. So there's hydrogen atoms and there's oxygen atoms in water. There's no happiness atoms in water. Right? So so there's only one other place that the happiness can be, and that's here. Now, if we closely examine what happens, okay, here's the desire. I need the water. at the moment that we get the water, that's when we stop desiring the water. The desire gets dissolved in the fulfillment of the desire. And what that does, here's the key thing, what that does is then it allows us to relax back. That moment where we drink the water and we go, that is when we relax back into ourself. That's exactly what happens. That's the meditation part. That's what happens when you drink the water. That's what happens when you sink the putt on the golf course. That's what happens when you have orgasm. That's what happens when when they hand you the college diploma. It's all It's all that same it's all using the external circumstances as a way of triggering our feeling that it's okay to relax back into ourself, and finding for the awareness to relax into itself, into awareness, and discover the nature of awareness, at least for a brief glimpse, which is just nothing, but there's something very good about it. So what we're doing in meditation is we're eliminating the middle man. We're saying, okay, what if instead of depending on getting the college diploma or the orgasm or whatever to settle back, what if we just settle back? Okay? Now, naturally, and here now I'm again addressing the issues in the email. Naturally, when we've had certain ways of getting gratification that are very powerful, and certainly, sexuality is a very, very powerful force in people's lives. And certainly it's one that's reinforced by society. We're surrounded by all these images of sexuality, and whether they're selling you a new car or they're selling you a 6-pack of beer or whatever, they put a sexy girl in the commercial, and basically, I remember one of my school teachers, one of my classroom teachers, explaining this. And I'd never thought of it that way before. He says, he says the message of the Budweiser ad is, buy this beer, you'll get to have sex with this girl. Right. It's such a jip. They cheat you, which is what our economy depends on, the way it's structured, because then they get to sell you another 6-pack, or they sell you the next thing, or it's okay. It's the new computer with the fancier operating system, or whatever. It's the next thing. It's the next thing. It all goes back to Christmas. Please, please buy me the Barbie doll, buy me the G.I. Joe. That'll be it. And it seems like it for 15 minutes, and then, because getting the Barbie, getting the G.I. Joe is just, once again, it's the triggering mechanism to relax back into yourself, into the boundlessness of the self. Then you need the next thing. So, of course, when we've got a lifetime of feeling, okay, sex is the thing that completely overwhelms my senses, my mind, my emotions, and all the movies and the pop music, and everything is there to reinforce it. Of course, that's an easy thing to fall back on. Of course, it makes perfect sense that could seem like a more powerful let's for now use the word distraction from my anxiety than the nature of awareness. The traditions are very, some traditions more than other, they're very savvy about this. They know that, it's a classic thing. It's a cliche, the you know the 16-year-old boy is sitting there in church, and up in the front of the church, the priest is talking about God and talking about Jesus or something, but the kid is, he's distracted by the pretty girl, over across the aisle. So in some of the really savvy traditions, what they do, for instance, if you take a look at the Tibetan Buddhist iconography, most of the Tibetan Buddhist, the Tibetan Buddhas, they're sitting there with their consorts. They're in other words, their mate. There's always a Mr. Buddha and a Mrs. Buddha, and he's sitting, in cross-legged in the lotus pose, and she's sitting cross-legged on his lap, on top of him, facing him. And you look closely at those statues up there on the altar in the front of the temple, and you go, oh, they're having sex. Okay? So isn't that an interesting, psychologically insightful strategy? Instead of saying, okay, up here in the front of the room is the sacred, but you're going to keep getting distracted by, the idea of sex over here, the cute girl across the aisle. We'll put the sex right up in the front and show that it is non-separate from the sacred, because our framework is non-dual. It's non-dual. How can the sacred exclude sex? How can sex exclude the sacred, exclude the infinite? All right? And then also there's all this, deep symbolism in the icons there, where the male Buddha and the female Buddha represent like different polarities. They're kind of like, protons and electrons. You always need the both polarities to make the wholeness of being, and so forth. It's the I and the thou in every relationship, the subject and the object. There's all these layers and layers of meaning in those things. So, on the practical point of view, okay, Sangha, everyone, help us out here. So what do we tell the person who says, yeah, when in meditation and I'm sitting there being racked with anxiety, and I feel that just relaxing my grip on that stuff and relaxing back into beingness doesn't make me, relieve me of my anxiety, but if I go allow myself to drift off on a sexual fantasy, then I find a space where I'm relieved of my anxiety. What should I do? What do we tell him or her? This is the essay question tonight.
You're the one.
Come on, don't make me do all the heavy lifting.
He wants help. Show him you're listening.
Oh.
Anybody? Yeah, Joyce.
I would just say enjoy it,
Uh-huh.
but don't get too caught up in it.
Uh-huh.
It's not really that different from the anxiety on one level. It's another pull
Uh-huh.
from the egoic mind to avoid feeling whatever's present.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so avoiding it or enjoying it or being attracted to it is kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Avoiding it, avoidance and attraction isn't that interesting? What you're saying, that's so interesting, that's so potent. Because here this questioner is making a big deal of, should I go to this thing or go to this thing? Should I avoid this thing? Should I avoid this thing?
Right.
And, we've been saying, you hear me saying all the time, there's this basic sameness, this basic equivalence of anything that comes up. And you're adding another layer of wisdom to that, Joyce, which is there's an equivalence to avoidance and attraction. That's also just more phenomena. But I'm also hearing in what you're saying, Joyce, I'm hearing something that I think is very useful, which is the attitude, which is just take it easy.
Yeah.
That's just take a gentle attitude toward whatever's going on, toward yourself.
Because that's one of my biggest issues too, is just to get caught up in the thoughts, which have been driving me a little crazy lately.
Mm-hmm.
And there's noticing, there's awareness, it's not who I am, but then they just take over, particularly in the middle of the night. And then there's the judgment that comes up. It's just all crazy. It's really all nuts. And instead of just resting and being, my question, maybe it's not the right time, maybe you want to continue in this other vein, but I have a question of, you said to me in an email, and it's just kind of common spiritual advice to ignore the thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't take them for who you are. But I would like a little more practical advice, and maybe it applies to the questioner's question as well, a little bit.
Okay. Can you say more about what you mean by practical advice? Because to me, ignore the thoughts, that's the practical advice. Ignore doesn't mean you try to make them not be there. That's a form of not ignoring, because that's requiring them to vanish. Right. People.
True.
So maybe that term ignore is not maybe not be the most skillful word to use. Because may sound like if ignore may sound like I'm not supposed to be aware of it. Right. What ignore means is we just decide we just don't particularly care whether they're there. It's, the ignore, and the thing is, we're all experts at this. When you're sitting at sitting at the bus stop, having a conversation with your friend, and the cars are going by, and there's all that the sound of the traffic. Are you like consciously registering each one?
No.
No, that's ignoring.
But the thoughts become the foreground, and the presence becomes a background when they're so pervasive. And some ignoring isn't right. Maybe just how do you avoid entertaining them, or having resting and awareness become more present, and the thoughts having resting and awareness be the foreground and the thoughts be the background.
Yeah.
You don't, right?
No, you don't. Yeah, and you don't try to set that up as a.
Right.
The moment you try to set that up as a goal or anything else up as a goal, as a model of what's supposed to be in meditation, you're going down a rabbit hole, right?
So I don't know how to phrase the question, but what advice do you have? What?
Here's my advice.
Loosen the grip.
Relax your grip.
Right.
Relax your grip on it. Whatever it is, whether it's worrying about this thing, worrying about that thing, the distinction between this, between that, just take it easy. Take it easy. So we're the traffic sound's going on. Then if suddenly someone squeals their brakes, they hit their brakes suddenly, then suddenly our attention goes to that, and we realize, all that traffic noise has been there all along. We just don't. But if we try to block out the traffic noise, we say, how can I be sitting here reading my book or talking with my friend with all that traffic noise? Right? Then we have a problem. Then we create the problem. So ignoring means that we just don't do that. We don't try to block out the traffic noise. We don't try to categorize it. Okay, the sound of trucks is bad, but the sound of motorcycles is good. That's the sexual fantasy is that a bad one or a good one? Is that one? It's just all part of the traffic. And all our thoughts about, dealing with this one, and that's also part of the traffic.
Well, it's also about suffering, that when we're caught up in our thoughts and the egoic world, we suffer.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I'd like to suffer less.
yeah, yeah. And in a sense, that's the, that's the experience of as we relax back into the self, it's just nothing, but there's something very good about it. That something very good is the, it's nirvana. The word nirvana literally means, people think it means heaven, it means,
Mm-hmm.
cosmic orgasm. Nirvana literally means blown away.
Mm-hmm.
Like when a flame, you blow out a candle flame or something, blown away. Our efforts, our distinctions, our requirements that this moment be a certain way are all our maintenance of a model of what meditation or of what of life is supposed to be like, and our requiring it to be this way, and then
Mm-hmm.
feeling distressed because it doesn't meet our model, which is totally a concept. All that is blown away. There's a great quote from this teacher, Jeff Foster, and I don't know anything
Oh, I
about him.
like him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know anything about him except this quote, which I think is so brilliant. See if I can try to get this right. Heaven is the present moment. Hell is the burning desire for the present moment to be other than it is.
Mm.
It's that simple.
Yeah, it is. It's wanting something to be different.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
basically the cause of suffering.
yeah. By the way, notice how brilliantly he phrases that. Hell is the burning desire for. That's
Yeah.
clever. That's some good writing there.
Yeah.
Laura, did you want to jump into this?
See, I'll unmute myself for starters.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't terribly profound, but I have to say I've been feeling like Joyce, like I've been fighting with my own thoughts and anxieties and worries a little bit more than usual.
Mm-hmm.
And tonight, you talked about the Buddha and the flowers, and I found that really useful. And I understand that it's just a raft,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of trying to, still my mind, I just let my mind come up with pictures of, this thought over here would pop up and it was a yellow daisy, and this popped up over here and it was a pink rose, or what, I just let my thought go that way.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon it all sort of settled down. So that was really surprisingly, interesting and helpful. And I get that those were all thoughts, but I like that a lot. That's all.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love the fact, Laura, that you took that thing when I said just, turn them all into flowers, that you took it more literally than I meant it.
Right.
It would not have occurred to me to do that. Okay, I'll turn that into a daisy. I'll turn that into a peony. My first reaction would be, gee, that's going to be another way for the mind to be busy. But that worked for you. And you know what? I can't give you the rules for how to practice. Whatever works, and as you say, it's a raft. It's whatever, as they say,
Right.
whatever gets you through the night. Whatever allows things, facilitates just, letting go and letting be, and then you let go of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like tonight's raft. It might not be tomorrow. Who knows?
Right.
But
And that's wisdom right there. To not say, okay, now, and God, how many times I've gone through that. Now I've found the way to practice.
right.
We're going to turn stuff into flowers. Right. And because of my personality, not only now I know to practice, now I know how to practice, and I have to tell everyone.
And I have to learn all the flower types.
Yes, right. Right.
Yeah, not good. Not good. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yafa, yes, unmute yourself, please.
I think I've shared this before, but I also, as a practical thing, personally, if I find my mind just running, I'll kind of go, oh, wait, let me just listen to the sounds around me. And that just for me, always works to just bring me to the present. Just car go by, cricket, whatever it is, the hum of the refrigerator, whatever. And then, kind of drifts away. I forget to listen, but it just helps ground me if I'm just going in my head. So,
Yeah, good. And that's a thing that seems to work for you long term. Thing that I'll do sometimes, I'm getting caught up, is I'll just crack my eyes open a little bit. You know, and because sometimes with the eyes closed, I tend to go off on long thought stories, and forget what I'm doing, and crack the eyes open. Oh yeah, I'm sitting here. It's meditation time. Just relax my grip on that stuff.
Thank you also for reminding me that it's the resistance that's the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So thank you all.
Yeah, it's resisting stuff, and it's pursuing stuff.
Yeah, I'm wishing it were different stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
All the same. Thank you.
When we renounce resisting, we renounce pursuing. What are we left over with? It's just being, and enjoy being. Oh, time for a little song before we go. So, especially in the traditions of India, there are all these different forms of the formless. We're very much used in Western spiritual traditions to seeing the infinite portrayed as the Divine Father. Certainly you get that in the Indian traditions, but we also get the Divine Mother. We get her as in China as Kuan Yin, and in Tibet as Tara. Actually, in the Christian traditions, we get her as the Blessed Virgin. In India, we have a whole assortment of Divine Mothers, depending on what's going on. When everything's fine, she's very gentle. She's called Parvati. When she has to be a little more firm, she's Durga. And when she has to be fierce to protect her cubs, she's called Kali. And she has big fangs and wears a necklace of skulls and all that. All the different aspects of mom. So this one is to Durga, and the words very simply are hey. Hey means hey, and then ma. Ma means ma, right? We're calling on the mother. Mom, I heard, Mom, I fell down. I shinned my knee. Mom, I'm scared. I'm scared of the dark, Mom. So we're calling out. So the words are, hey, ma, Durga. Oh, I got to mute people, I'm being told. Oops. No. Okay. You're all muted. Thank you, Yafa. Oops. Hey, Ma Durga. 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 Hey 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 Ma Durga. So, can always good to call out to Ma for help. In this case, I forgot the chords, so I was calling on Ma to help me remember the chords. So, may all beings swiftly realize that just nothing, but something very good about it. Something infinitely good about it, that which they've been seeking everywhere else. The happiness molecule they thought was in the water, in the sex, in the everything, turns out it was in the awareness that was looking for it all along. And then the fun thing is, as you learn to enjoy being that way, is then, oh yeah, hey, drinking water's great. Having sex, if that happens to be part of your life, this chapter of your life, it's great. And if it's not part of your life in this chapter, great. It's all being. It's all infinitely enjoyable. The best possible news. See if I can remember this chord. Lokam samas. Nope. Capo up, Dean. Lokam samasta Sukhino bhavantu Lokam samasta Sukhino bhavantu Lokam samasta Sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See ya. Enjoy being.
You
Will
too.
do.
Good. Don't forget.